The warm sunlight shines through the forest canopy, creating a brilliant scene. Under the tree, the small lizard is drowsily napping in the golden sunlight. Its scales glisten and its chest rises and falls with its slow breathing rhythm. Everything is peaceful until something comes rushing. Something massive causes the surrounding trees to stir. The small lizard wakes up, hastily fleeing before the giant. Hairy hand grabs the tree where it was just sleeping. That arm belongs to a 3-meter tall, over 300 kilograms creature named Gigantopithecus. That size is twice as large as a modern adult gorilla. Gigantopithecus doesn't care much about the presence of that small reptile, but only cares about finding itself a good meal. With its massive the need for food is almost continuous. And food is becoming increasingly harder to find in the ever-changing world. Gigantopithecus is struggling to survive. It and its kind have depleted the food sources in the area and must quickly move. Searching for something to satisfy their hunger. After a while, the ground and trees begin to thin out, giving way to an expansive open area ahead. The giant animal stops at the forest edge and observes the unfamiliar scene. There's nothing for it there. With a resounding roar, it turns back, continuing to find ways to survive in the increasingly shrinking forest area. You might think this beast lived 2 million years ago, but many studies indicate they existed until as recently as 200,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the hominin branch had lived in China for over 1 million years. This means our ancestors once breathed the same air and walked the same paths as Gigantopithecus. Yet now, they are extinct, while we are not. The extinction of Gigantopithecus is not particularly special at all. Long before that happened, the entire family of true apes had declined to an unbelievable extent. If we look back 10 to 20 million years ago, we would see a very different world. During the Miocene epoch of the Neogene period, apes reached their peak in numbers, distribution area, and species diversity. But in the modern world, apes are but a shadow of their former selves. Most ape lineages have gone extinct in a rather puzzling manner. What caused this disaster? Why did countless relatives of ours decline into the oblivion of time? What was the driving force that propelled the hominin lineage to rise? Conquering the planet, absolutely. Human history, final episode. Why didn't we go extinct? As usual, please take a few seconds to like and subscribe, so you don't miss the most exciting content posted. This will be the final episode where we discuss important events in human history, based on the evolutionary theory as agreed upon in the first episode of the series. Hopefully, you're all ready. We will now proceed to the main content. An ordinary cold day in 1798. A mysterious sealed crate had just arrived from the British Museum. According to the label on the outside, it had traveled thousands of kilometers from the shores of Sazoe in Australia. All the museum's scholars were attentively watching. They expected the shipment to contain some treasure worthy of the world's most famous museum. But the reality was completely different from expectations. There was no treasure at all. What they saw was a creature so strange it seemed not to be from Earth. A creature possessing the basic characteristics of mammals, with smooth brown fur and a long, flat tail like a beaver's. But it had a duck-like bill and webbed feet. This creature is known to us today as the platypus, a missing link in evolutionary research. The platypus is unlike other mammals. It is a relic, descended from an ancient lineage that existed tens of millions of years ago, when dinosaurs still ruled the earth. Today, Platypuses only live in freshwater streams in eastern Australia and Tasmania. But 65 million years ago, their ancestors were reported to have lived in what is now South America as well. This partly suggests that they likely had many relatives once distributed across much of the supercontinent Gondwana. However, over time, only the platypus and 4 species of echidna are the last surviving egg-laying mammals. Even more surprising, when considering the genus level, the platypus is the sole surviving representative. So what does the example of the platypus show us? The answer relates to the fate of species. No matter how ecologically successful a species may be, one day, they too must face extinction. At best, they suffer a severe decline in diversity. At worst, they disappear completely. This planet is home to millions of different life forms, including over 435,000 known plant species, 150,000 fungi species, and 1.2 million documented animal species. However, scientists estimate that 99.9% of all life that has ever existed on Earth has gone extinct. Extinction occurs when a genus or a larger group of species no longer exists. This outcome comes from the species' birth rate not being greater than or equal to the death rate over time. From the fossil record, we know these species often could not withstand changes in their habitat, or their evolution was slower than that of predators and competitors. But it is also from the fossil record that we can find incredible creatures from the past. Discovering a new species is the dream of every paleontologist, but sometimes reality is even more astonishing. In 2007, the team of researchers found fossil traces of the species Anthropology, which lived around the Miocene epoch. The fossils belong to Anthropology, a completely new great ape genus excavated at the Korakele paleontological site in Anatolia, central Turkey. If you didn't know, the genus is a group of related species sharing common characteristics. But discovering a new genus doesn't give you much special information about the species within it. For example, when discovering the fossil of a cat, you wouldn't be able to imagine anything about lions, jaguars, or domestic cats. This discovery sparked an investigation that lasted 16 years. By the end of 2023, scientists announced an astonishing result. The great ape genus Anthropology belongs to a branch of the evolutionary tree that gave rise to chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and humans. That means besides this species, there are many other species in the same genus that are yet to be identified. Anthropology existed about 8.7 million years ago. It represents a branch of the great ape family that tried to forge a new path to cope with a changing world. Perhaps our ancestors survived after migrating to Africa to give rise to later great apes and eventually us. The period during which Anthropology existed was also a time of the most dramatic fluctuations for the primate family in general and for apes in particular. Over 23 million years ago, the Miocene began as a period of great changes. Recorded average temperatures were often 5 degrees Celsius warmer than today. Due to higher temperatures leading to melting ice, rising sea levels caused many areas of today's coastal cities to be completely submerged. Oceans spread widely across both the northern and southern hemispheres. Through a modern lens, the Miocene appears as a transitional period characteristic of nature deciding it was time to redecorate the planet's landscape. Many ancient life forms ended, leaving an extremely vast opportunity for newer, more modern forms of animals and plants. In the trees, a group of primates had just split from their common ancestor. Although their origins began in the early Miocene with a creature named proconsul, it wasn't until the middle of this epoch that they fully diversified. About 13 million years ago, Earth was home to many remarkable new ape species. With much more flexible shoulders compared to the first apes that moved through trees in Europe and Asia. Scientists estimate that over 100 great ape species existed throughout the Miocene, and much of this diversity originated from the middle of the epoch. But why did this period witness an explosion of ape species in general and great apes in particular? The answer might not be unfamiliar if you watched all previous episodes of this series. It's simply due to climate. But in the issue we're discussing, the influence of climate occurred through a more complex biological phenomenon called evolutionary radiation. Evolutionary radiation, or evolutionary radiation in English, is the diversification from a single ancestral species into multiple lineages to adapt to new ecological environments. Additionally, there is the concept of adaptive radiation, a form of evolutionary radiation to fill ecological niches. Adaptive radiation occurs when environmental changes open up new opportunities for life to adapt and thrive. As Darwin hypothesized when observing the diversity of finches on Earth, environmental changes drove finches to diversify from a common ancestor to suit new conditions. A period with forests covering most of Earth's surface, like the early and middle Miocene, is ideal for apes to multiply. But these forests weren't uniform. Each area had different environments, so evolutionary radiation occurred. As the warm period passed and the climate cooled, some new habitats emerged, providing new ecological niches for organisms to evolve and fill. The new environments posed unique challenges, prompting apes to develop intelligence to cope. For example, Dryopithecus and Pliopithecus adapted to live in newly formed temperate forests in Western Europe. Others, like Kenupithecus, evolved to thrive in mixed forests of Africa, the Middle East, and North India. Meanwhile, Oreopithecus lived in swamp forests of ancient Italy. This period can be considered an ecological experiment with ape species. Our ancestors ventured into new lands, adapting to different lifestyles. Over generations, that development became increasingly refined and better suited. For instance, species living in mixed forest grasslands evolved to eat new foods and lost purely arboreal traits. Two ape species living in swamp forests also developed traits to exploit abundant aquatic resources. Today, we still see many ape species using hard stones to crack open snails for food. In summary, the ape explosion stemmed from habitat diversity, unsurprisingly called the Planet of the Apes' rise. But how could many ape species coexist? That is, in the same environment, how did different ape species maintain peace without competing for food? To answer, you need to understand the concept of niche partitioning. Look at the savanna, where grass grows well. Here, many herbivorous species coexist. All live peacefully, without conflict when searching for food. Zebras graze on grass and tough leaves at medium heights, while antelopes eat tender shoots and softer leaves. At greater heights, no other species can reach. Giraffes with their long necks monopolize this food source. Differences in diet and foraging height are classic examples of species partitioning to use shared resources. In the context of the Miocene, a similar story unfolded among ape species. With the discovery of Anadoluvius, excavations in Turkey found at least 3 different genera, leading to interesting conclusions. These ape species, during the explosion period, likely lived together in one environment. Anadoluvius lived in Turkey alongside Gryphopithecus and Ramapithecus. Each species, with its unique traits, found ways to thrive without competing for food. Based on environmental changes, Anadoluvius may have spent more time moving on the ground, foraging for grass, low shrubs, and tubers. But the Gryphopithecus species was entirely different. Their tooth and bone structures indicate they lived in the lower canopy, eating various fruits and nuts. Sometimes they also ate small vertebrates and insects. On the other hand, Radipithecus also established its own niche in the ecosystem by possessing a superior foraging height above all others. You can imagine them as the modern-day apes. They maximized the use of fruits and leaves that could only be found high up. Through the mentioned species, the ape fossils in Turkey present a perfect picture of the adaptability and diversity of monkeys in general. Each species in its own world demonstrates remarkable resilience and flexibility in response to dramatic changes. As mentioned, the ape world is not just a planet of monkeys in terms of numbers, but also an extraordinary evolutionary testing ground. When compared to the present time, we immediately recognize an enormous difference. Climate was once what helped life flourish and explode. Now it is changing once again. Forests disappeared in many places, and the descendants of Anthropology also began leaving their homeland for Africa. They were simply following the forests that were receding towards the equator. But in this world, not only existing species had to strive for survival, but even completely new species about to appear had to do the same. And surprisingly, the new species showed superior adaptation by being able to live even in the increasingly common grassland environment. Their anatomical solutions, especially their upright posture, allowed them to overcome the challenges of more open and diverse. This emergence along with the disappearance of ancient ape species marked an incredible turning point in the story of evolution. In the 1930s, Hong Kong was a bustling city, a port town full of shops and vibrant markets every afternoon. In 1935, two men entered a small, old traditional medicine shop. One of them was a local, the other came from the West. The foreign guest was not surprised when he saw the dried herbs or wines with animals inside the shop. But clearly he was looking for something. He was Ralph von Prenisler, who had spent 5 years working in the East Asia region. He was currently in Hong Kong to find an item said to cure all diseases. But Ralph's interest in this item had nothing to do with its healing abilities. His local guide conversed with the shopkeeper, and then the owner disappeared into the back. He returned a few seconds later, carrying a tray with various small items of many colors, from pearl white to amber yellow. The shopkeeper called them dragon teeth. However, Ralph didn't quite hear that name, as he was captivated by the particularly large specimen in the tray. If you didn't know, dragon teeth here referred to fossilized mammal teeth. Throughout his time in Asia, Ralph continuously collected such items, hoping to advance his research on evolutionary history. A small medicine shop had just helped him discover something extremely important. The specimen he was looking at belonged to a previously undiscovered species. It was described as a giant ape larger than any that had ever existed in history. That is Gigantopithecus, the one that appeared at the beginning of the video. Our knowledge of this giant ape is limited to a few specimens like the one Ralph found. But these very specimens have allowed paleontologists to estimate an astonishing size. At twice the size of a modern giant gorilla, Gigantopithecus highlights the diversity that was once characteristic of apes, or great apes of the Miocene. Moreover, it serves as a profound reminder that even the strongest, largest species can go extinct. But how does that extinction work? Is it a gradual decline, or the result of unpredictable catastrophic events? In the case of Gigantopithecus, the answer is gradual decline. And for similar reasons, Miocene ape species also ended their journey around 5 to 10 million years ago. To understand the true extent of loss in the ape lineage, we must turn our attention back to the Miocene, particularly the middle and late periods of this turbulent era. Look at the fossils of these tiny marine organisms. Their shells are found in sediments extracted from the ocean floor, providing a detailed record of temperature and chemical composition from that period. Research shows that the Middle Miocene period was characterized by significantly higher global temperatures, marking a remarkably warm period. This is called the Middle Miocene climatic optimum, but it didn't last long. Chemical composition from fossils reveals information about global cooling trends immediately following the climatic optimum. Temperatures drop sharply by 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Scientists still don't know exactly what caused this transformation. But it appears that changes in Earth's magnetic field, expansion of polar ice sheets, and changes in ocean circulation played important roles. We can be certain that whenever Earth's temperature changes on such a large scale, species face extinction risks. The late Miocene brought colder and drier conditions, causing rainfall to decline. Along with that, air humidity also decreased. Entire ecosystems based on forests faced the risk of disappearing. The planet was delivering an ultimatum to Miocene apes: adapt or die. Ancient environmental evidence shows the presence of animals such as elephants, rhinos, and antelopes. This aligns with the fact that during this period, the landscape changed from dense forests to open grasslands. Seasonal climate also became distinctly pronounced. Species that typically rely on fresh leaves and fruits cannot survive in such an environment, as fruits become increasingly scarce during the dry season. Some monkeys continued to cling to the shrinking forests to survive. The landscape grew drier each year, but there were also other Miocene monkeys that ventured out of the forest to explore the new environment awaiting them. One of these pioneers became hominids, the first humans appearing from 5 to 7 million years ago. They were not just survivors in a changing world but also revolutionaries in adapting to our new habitat. You might think species go extinct because they refuse to change. However, for many monkeys, transitioning to an open environment was impossible. In these grasslands, adapting to a drier habitat was mandatory, akin to a death sentence for species that had lived in trees for millions of years. The more advantages they had in trees, the more disadvantaged they were on the ground. Erinopithecus and Gracecopithecus, two large European apes that went extinct about 8 to 10 million years ago, coincided with a period of severe environmental changes on the continent. Their extinction was not merely a consequence of landscape changes but also reflected their inability to adapt quickly enough to the world. In Asia, Miocene monkeys persisted for a few more million years with Lufenpithecus and Gigantopithecus, but ultimately, they too went extinct when environmental changes devastated their home. The pattern of survival and extinction repeats throughout the history of life and can still be observed today. From the fierce competition between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals over 40,000 years ago to the modern competition between red and gray squirrels, the principle remains unchanged. Species that adapt better to current conditions and surpass their opponents always win. This reminder carries the warning that survival does not necessarily depend on being the strongest or smartest, but on being the most adaptable. Look at Neanderthals again, a human species we once thought was less intelligent than Homo sapiens, and that must have been why they went extinct. However, after much research, it's likely they went extinct due to other factors like slow reproduction rates, high energy demands, and sparse populations. Homo sapiens, with faster reproduction, lower energy needs, and larger, interconnected groups, were able to overcome and secure their dominant position. Although climate change can be considered the main cause, they might have survived in small numbers if not defeated by our Homo sapiens ancestors in the evolutionary arms race. You can understand this as the nature of competitive exclusion, a phenomenon well documented in the natural world. Two species competing for the same resources cannot coexist for long. They may share an environment temporarily, but ultimately one species is bound to be eliminated. The same principle occurs in forests where monkeys live. Competitive exclusion has put species dependent on fruits for food under tremendous pressure. War is inevitable until a final victor is found. Gigantopithecus was one of the victims of a similar war, but one that occurred much later, around 200,000 years ago. Our ancestors successfully endured millions of years of competition. before failing due to over-specialization in diet. Ancient environmental data and microscopic analyses of they were a particularly picky species when climate change caused the widespread forests to shrink in area. It made their available food sources disappear. Even as recently as early 2024, a published study showed around 295,000 years, many gigantopithecus individuals experienced chronic stress from being unable. Many Miocene primates also went extinct for that reason. Thus, today only 7 non-human great ape species remain. But that aligns with the fact that they have succeeded, just like us. Competing to survive has never been easy. Before entering the survival war, we also competed with other related species. Before stretching back 5 million, 10 million, then 15 million years ago. Witnessed many instances of our ancestors succeeding while other species perished. It's hard to imagine exactly how we managed to survive. What if I told you that within each of us, we carry a bit of Neanderthal DNA? That's hard to believe, but it. Some may carry more traits from that ancient human species, others less, depending on where you come from. In another sense, you could say that Neanderthals haven't truly gone extinct. Homo sapiens are now the only surviving human species. And how we survived while many others went extinct remains a great mystery. When the Miocene forests began to shrink, causing many monkey species to go extinct, it also created a new opportunity for another evolutionary. That branch is one branch in our family tree. The late Miocene epoch was marked by the development of hominids on grasslands. Their evolutionary characteristics gave them distinct advantages over other apes of the same. Most notably was the ability to walk on. About 6 to 7 million years ago, species like Sahelanthropus ginesis were very different from contemporary apes. They lived in various environments, from deserts to wetlands and vast grasslands. The discovery of them in diverse habitats shows that even our earliest hominid ancestors had better adaptability than contemporary species, thanks to bipedalism. This special ability was initially not fully developed and needed time to evolve. But in the future, it would certainly play an important role in the evolution. Their descendants, including us, would walk completely on 2 legs, freeing our hands and developing dexterity. This allowed them to create complex tools. By 2 million years ago, the world entered the era of Homo habilis and Homo erectus. Humans moved further and foraged more efficiently than any previous migration. Resources were almost maximally utilized for the survival and development of later human lineages. While Gigantopithecus went extinct due to an overly specialized diet, Homo sapiens completely overcame that. Innovative techniques helped them access resources that were for example, long-range weapons helped us take down large prey. Different human species expanded and distributed across new environments without much difficulty. The story of species extinction in the Miocene epoch played an important part in our evolutionary journey. Although the number of species decreased sharply and only a few remained, we maintained the continuous existence of our ancestors over millions of years. The remaining species, from gorillas to orangutans, also have similar miraculous survival journeys as our ancestors. And who knows, soon another purge might occur. And we will have to face the next survival battle to maintain our lineage. So we have completed all 5 episodes about human evolutionary history. From surviving, to when we have experienced an episode about human evolutionary history. From surviving mass extinction disasters, to adapting through geological epochs. Then witnessing the severe decline in species numbers like today. Do you think humans are a great achievement that nature has created? Have we truly understood all about our origins? Thank you very much for your interest and attention. We will meet again in more quality exploration series. Than equals says hello and see you in the next video. Wishing everyone a peaceful day.